48 points, but Duke scored 88 points and therefore 40 more points. So we know Quick Draw, my new nickname for Isaiah Evans, who I don't even know how fast you could get the ball and release. It's just ridiculous. I think he had 12 or maybe a drive, maybe 11 or 13.
Evans finished the game with 16. He had 16 to finish the
16.
game.
It was a nice breakout game for him, which I didn't, I kept, maybe I get half credit on that one because I kept saying I thought Foster, who did not play well today, and or Evans would eventually have a breakout game, but that may be the only one of my predictions that I got half right because I'm not taking a lot of credit for Evans' performance tonight. He was, Quick Jar was right there. It was great.
It was great, and I may have messed up. So for whatever reason, I'm having a little bit of difficulty here. So if I missed it, maybe repeating something here, but Duke, we thought would not get off to a good start, but be able to control the paint. And Venning right away was able to score. He had the first 6 points for Boston College, and he was taking it to Kama Malawach in a way that really surprised me. I knew Venning could score, but I thought, as you did, yes, he's 270, but he was going to be giving up 5 inches. I thought Kama Malawach would be a real deterrent in the paint. And Mr. Venning had his way, especially early.
Clearly, Corey Alexander said in talking to the Boston College coach, that was a matchup they were looking forward to. And so it worked so well that you and I were sitting there going, why don't they keep it up? And he only, what did he have? 5 field goal attempts for the entire first half.
Correct. Yeah, 5 field goal attempts, 1 for 2 from the free throw line. The only 2 ways Duke was able to slow down Mr. Venning were when he got into foul trouble. He picked up his second foul, and Boston College guards just stopped passing it to him. And you have to wonder if they would have given him 10 field goal attempts in the first half instead of 5. Whether Boston College has a lead at the half instead of being down 6, and how that changes the rest of the game.
Given his size, 6'9", 270, it was starting to seem not quite the same, but reminiscent of the big guy from NC State.
Okay, definitely not quite the same, but
different movement and everything. But that
DJ Burns, though, I don't know. I get where you're going, but I feel like DJ Burns, he's just on another level. Venning was great. He was great tonight. But DJ Burns, he had the spin move. He had not only the one thing Venning couldn't do that Burns could do was hit a 12 to 15 footer, and then also the other thing. This is maybe I'm a big DJ Burns fan. I don't know, but also the passing from Burns, right? Because as Lawrence Freeman chimed in, he said his only critique of the game is he wishes Coach Shire didn't wait so long to double the post. BC can't shoot, and that was something we addressed in the pregame. And Venning, once we started to double, it was turnover, lost ball, bad shot. He couldn't really handle it. Burns, if you double DJ Burns, he's spraying the ball. Somebody's hitting the 3. That was the big problem, and why NC State went on their run.
I said it was the first 2 or 3 minutes that it brought back that memory. But move on.
No, I'm just, it just reminded me of. It was a great run by NC State. I'm sorry, and it came at Duke's expense, right? 2 of those 11 games.
Yep.
Let's move on. You're right. So the one thing that Duke did an excellent job on defensively in this game, though, was Donald Hand Jr. And a lot of credit as great as Tyrese Proctor was offensively, he typically guards, and as he did today, the opposition's best perimeter option. And he did a great job on Mr. Hand, who finished with 12 points, but it took him 12 shots to get there. And he really never found a flow offensively. And Proctor did a great job, along with Duke as a collective, of limiting Mr. Hand, who was clearly their number one guy coming into this game. The other thing, since you brought up how Coach Grant he thought they had an advantage in the post with Chad Venning over Malawach, and he was right about that. The other thing I thought he did a good job of was they said, who are you trying to limit? And it wasn't Cooper Flagg. Cooper Flagg is pretty tough. You might be able to slow him down, I guess, but you're never going to be able to stop him unless he kind of does it himself. And as of late, that seems impossible. But his game plan was to take away Con Knippel. And watching the Miami game, the one thing that was, kind of surprising to me was how often he was wide open. And today he was not open at all. And Boston College did a really good job of not allowing Con Knippel to get open shots.
One thing I will say about Coop's game tonight, which was he had a lot of fans there since the game was at Boston College. His parents were there, and probably, had another terrific dunk. But probably one of the great moments was the technical foul called on him, where I am still looking for they showed the replay. Clearly he didn't say anything. The closest thing was maybe somebody else said something, like excited because that came on a Cooper Flagg block. So
all right, since you brought it up, typically I try to refrain from talking about the refs. I thought they were really bad, kind of on both sides today. Just a lot of strange calls. There was, as you mentioned, the Cooper Flagg technical where I'm not quite sure. I don't think anyone, we won't know. It'd be a good time, to have the refs have a post-game press conference and just say, hey, what'd you hear? And then maybe we could be like, oh, okay, maybe that's what happened. But watching it live, it was strange. There was also the late in the game, didn't matter. None of these calls really mattered. It's just strange. They called an offensive foul on Mason Gillis when Darren Harris missed the three, and it just kind of landed in Gillis's lap, and they called an offensive foul, and there was no contact. It was just bizarre. So that's my rant on the refs today. Speaking of Mason Gillis, though, I thought again he played excellent. The box score doesn't necessarily jump out. He had 4 points, 6 rebounds today. He played some at center, played some minutes at center, which
was really important for us.
Really important because neither Malawach nor Gangba could guard Chad Venning today. But once we went to Gillis, we changed up how we were guarding Venning. That was really what changed the momentum of the game. So a big shout out to Mason Gillis, who's just been playing really well over Duke's 12-game winning streak now.
And on the other hand, the Caleb Foster, not certain why he isn't being more effective. Maybe he feels like the odd man out. Maybe he's just not. Even his drives to the basket weren't as explosive as he could be. He had 1-3 wide open, didn't hit it, no big deal, but just not a great performance from him. And another thing I had wrong, I had a minimum of 5 alley-oops to Mal, and that didn't happen. I credit myself with 1.5 early on. One really wasn't an alley-oop, but they got the ball into him.
I think the
Go
answer
ahead.
would be one. I don't know if there's a half of an alley oop. I think you'd have one. I set the line at 2.5 alley oops, so it was definitely
You
under.
did.
Definitely
It
under.
was. It was not a. It was a difficult. It's really rare. We haven't seen this where both big men get into foul trouble for us, and yet we go small. But Gillis and Sion James are so strong that we, at least in this Boston College game, we could get away with it. I'm not certain against some of the other SEC opponents or Big 12 that we could do this. And it certainly speaks to why Malik Brown, who we were missing tonight, would have been a nice presence in the middle there. Deflections, that ball never would have gotten down to Venning. So, Malik, we need you. You got to come back. But I think we're still a couple of weeks away.
We definitely missed Malik today. We missed him against Notre Dame. It's all of the little things that he does that is so important. But the small ball, I guess, lineup worked for Duke. It's interesting. I've been kind of sitting on this comparison, but I think now is an appropriate time based off where the game was played. In some ways, the Duke lineup reminds me a little bit of the Celtics, just in the sense of you've got the two defensive guards in Proctor and Sion James. And James kind of reminds me of Drew Holiday in the sense that when he's matched up with a bigger player, you're never really worried about it. And Proctor's kind of like, Derek White. He kind of just guards the more difficult perimeter assignment. And then you've got Knipple and Flag. Those are your forwards. Those are Brown and Tatum. And Malawach is Porzingis. It's not perfect. It's kind of like your Burns-Venning comparison.
I guess it's much better than my DJ Burns Venning comparison.
I don't know if it's much better, but it's somewhere in there. But
we were in Boston, and as you saw, the whole team went to see the Celtics the night before, and that was kind of cool. JT had photos with him, Tatum, and Bancaros. They played
the Magic. So
yeah.
the one thing that a lot of Duke fans were commenting on Duke's Instagram was, there was photos with Paolo, there was photos with Tatum, as you just said, but there weren't any pictures with Wendell Carter in the post game, and I'm not exactly sure, what the reason was for that. So if anybody has any ideas in the chat, drop it in and let me know. But the reason I brought up that comparison was to your point. Sion James at times, you don't want him guarding the center for the whole game, but if he's switched onto the center, as you said, he's got the strength. Gillis has the strength. It's one of the abilities of this Duke defense to be able to switch a lot of positions and be okay for short stretches. And this was the first time that we've had to go to small lineup because of the Brown injury and then the foul trouble, as you said. So it was good to get a look at it. I think, especially against, a Big 12 SEC opponent, as you said, a Alabama, an Auburn, an Iowa State, it's going to be important to be able to play with our five men. But it's nice to know that we can throw this lineup out there and have a little change of pace for Duke. Are there any players that you want to highlight that we haven't talked about yet?
I was going through the lineup. I thought that Knipple, I look, he went from just a great game against Miami to, was he even on the court tonight? I think I was a little disappointed that even though they had made an adjustment to Boston College had made an adjustment that they were not going to let Khan have another big game, that there isn't a way to free him up. And I said, this is the same issue that I had last game with Evans, that there should be a screen or something that you can free him up for a shot, because he certainly is an excellent shooter. And, your point was that Malik Brown was that guy that could provide that screen up around the, between the foul line and the top of the key. So, little disappointed that we can't seem to help the players sometimes that are going to play. So that a little bit about K2 there. Rest of the starting lineup, other than Mal getting into foul trouble, which we have not seen. So I'm not certain what that was about. I'm not certain then how Gangba gets into foul trouble too. I mean, Jack, what do you think? Was it just the presence of their two 6'9" aggressive guys down low, that our two 7-footers could not adjust, and in fact, almost both of them fouled out?
Well, I think it's important to separate the two. I think more than anything, Venning he's a very experienced player. He's a grad transfer. This is his 5th year of college basketball. It wasn't the Hastings matchup that was getting Duke into foul trouble. It was Venning. And today, Boston College in previous matchups, whether I've seen them play against Notre Dame, most recently they played against SMU, they play through Venning, especially early. And Malawach didn't do a great job, and typically he does, of just walling up and being a deterrent, and he was kind of playing catch-up a few times today, where Venning would kind of beat him with his initial move, and then he would try to recover, and it didn't seem to, it just didn't work out today for Malawach. He seemed a little bit off, kind of like Khan. I don't know if you caught it at the end of the game. They showed Cooper Flagg and Proctor and Knipple on the bench, and you see Flagg and Proctor kind of laughing, and then Khan has this blank stare, like he's trying to figure out what happened today or tonight. And so I'm sure he'll be back. I think now is a good time. Let me answer some of the chat before we turn to the stats of the game. So Pay the Piper chimed in. He said, great second half. Thankful to Flagg and Proctor for a fantastic game. Stop me at any time if you want to comment, JD. He said,
no, just spot on comment.
Agreed. Field and 3-point shooting was not the best tonight, but still managed to drop 80 points. 100% agree. Khan definitely struggled with his shooting, but he'll come back as he always does. And he also said, don't forget about Evans with 16 points. Evans, I like the new nickname, Quick Draw. One thing about Evans, this is all I got to say. If you're passing the ball to Evans, don't expect to get it back. When you give it to Evans as the passer, it's your responsibility to make sure that when he gets it, it's going to be a good shot, because once he gets the ball, it's going up. So it's your responsibility to put him in a good spot, because he only knows one way. And that's why some days it's amazing, and some days he misses his first 3 shots, and then Shire doesn't play him very much. But he's been so important. Obviously, he won the Auburn game, and his offense has been part of the reason why Duke's offense has gone to another level over the past month has been his inclusion, as we all called for prior to the Auburn game. Where's Isaiah Evans? It's been part of the reason why Duke's offense has gone to another level.
Other comments?
Other comments, Archangel Music said the small lineup worked. Agreed.
Yep.
That was definitely a game changer today, and I'm really glad Pay the Piper came back with this one because I probably would have forgotten. I wanted to get to this. He said, not related to this game, but fantastic to see Stanford beat UNC. Way to go, Jalen Blakes, with the game. Jalen Blakes, shout out Jalen Blakes. Awesome comment, Pay the Piper. Jalen Blakes has been fantastic. I am really excited for the game against Stanford to see Mr. Blakes, who I thought he could be, good on another team, similar to like a Goldwire when he went to Oklahoma. But by good, I thought maybe 8 points a game, a couple assists, 2 steals. I thought he could do that. We all knew about Blake's defense, but the consistent offensive production, the game winner was just awesome, fading away, hitting a tough mid-range shot over Seth Trimble. Jalen Blakes has been unbelievable. And in no world would you have guessed of I think it was 7 guys who transferred out from Duke last season, that Jalen Blakes would be far and away the best player of the 7 at their respective programs.
Well, especially offensively, because I think we love Jalen Blakes as a defensive stopper. He was a terrific, just great defensive player. So I'm even more surprised by the breakout in offense.
He did have one game, I want to say 2 years ago, where he had like 17 points against Wake Forest. And I think Duke still lost the game, but he was the only reason it was close. And we were, I think at the time, missing a couple of people to injury. But that was a one-off. To be this consistent has been awesome. So let me pull up the stats for today. So Duke 88, Boston College 63. 3 guys in double figures today for Duke. Cooper Flagg 28 points, Tyrese Proctor 20 points, and Isaiah Evans 16 points. Overall, Duke ended up shooting 53%, we'll round up, from the field, 33%, 8 of 24 from 3, and a very solid 80%, 20 of 25 from the free throw line. And most importantly, actually, towards the end of the game were most of these, but only 8 turnovers in the game. There's a long stretch where they didn't have a turnover in this game. That has been one of the strengths offensively for Duke this year, is that they've done a good job of not turning the ball over and being efficient with their possessions.
I also think that we give a shout out to their defense again. It was not clearly, with a halftime score of 40-34, not the lockdown defense that we're used to. But then there's that segment of about 9 to 10 minutes in the second half after the first segment, which was pretty close. I think it was 9-8 after the first segment, and it was 49-41. And then all of a sudden, it was like we doubled them up. It was like 40-20, 40-21.
Yeah. It seems to be that Duke's defense, outside of Notre Dame seems to be the exception. I hope that's the case for the rest of the year. It seems to be that Duke's defense kind of wears on teams, and as the game goes on, it's like the first half, even the first few minutes of the second half, they can withstand it, but it seems like the pressure kind of wears on them as the game gets later, has been the theme. Although you could argue that some of that has been the opponent, because we didn't necessarily see that in some of the bigger games against Auburn, Kansas, Kentucky. So I'm excited for Duke. Now we will start to see some better opponents. Next week will be Wake Forest. So there's a little bit of a break. We have a week off between games, and that should be a good one because similar to last year, Wake Forest is on the outside looking in right now of the bubble and needs to beat Duke to really, get themselves solidly in the tournament picture. So it's going to be, as it is with every game, the biggest game of the year for Duke's opponent.
not much to add to that with the week off. For me, I'll always go back to we're now 16-2 and 8-0 in the ACC play. So the game against Wake, is that where we'll stumble? We'll save that for the pregame show, but 8-0 in the voyage to see if we can run the table.
With that being said, let's go through the awards for tonight. So,
go ahead, Jack. The gold.
I gotta say, before we get into the gold, I had a really tough time figuring out the bronze today. I think there was definitely 2, maybe 3 guys in consideration for the bronze. With that being said, the gold is Cooper Flagg. I think he's going to be the gold in 75% of Duke games. He was fantastic. Had a little bit of a slow start. Really got it going towards the end of the first half, and then the second half, he was just fantastic on both sides of the ball. Defensively, blocked a couple shots. The block he had on Venning in the second half was really impressive late in the game. Obviously, the block Brown was impressive that he got called for a technical. He just was everywhere and was so important for Duke. And then
you know what? Stay with Flagg for a second. It's kind of interesting that in the first half, where I didn't see him mounting the points so much, but obviously he did. He had 15 points in the first half. He had 13 points in the second half, and yet his overall game, was far more dominant in the second half. Block shots, rebounds, aggression. But in the first half, when he scored 15 points, I mean, there's just not much you can say.
He may have had 13. I'm not 100% sure on that. It doesn't really matter. But the other thing, when you said aggression, I almost forgot. He had another highlight dunk today, which was an impressive hammer when Boston College went to the zone. He cut inside. I think it was Sion James who found him for the dunk. All right, silver, Tyrese Proctor. Proctor was when you say Cooper was a little bit quiet in the way he scored his points in the first half. Proctor was not. It was very noticeable when Proctor was scoring in the first half. They were timely and important buckets for Duke. His defense was great again. He just had an awesome overall performance for the Dukies today, finishing with 20 points, 7 of 12 from the field, 3 3-pointers, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal. And just, again, a really well-rounded defensive effort from Proctor. All right, now this was the tough part. Bronze. You can feel free to quibble with me after I'm done. I went with Sion James. And the reason I went with Sion James, he had 6 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. He, 2 for 3 from the field, 2 for 3 from the free throw line. I totally understand if you wanted the bronze to be Isaiah Evans or even Mason Gillis for their respective performances in different ways. I just felt like Sion's passing was really important today, and also his defense with his ability to guard on the perimeter. And then, as we talked about earlier, his ability to switch inside for short stretches and cover Boston College's big men when Duke went to a smaller lineup. I just thought he was really impactful in ways that don't necessarily show up in the box score.
I'm going to quibble.
Go ahead.
I like the trajectory. I'm not going to give it a quick draw, though. His 16 points certainly merits consideration for the bronze in this game. I'm going at Mason Gillis. The trajectory of Mason, the dependability that we have on Mason to give us good minutes, has been so much stronger in the last 4 or 5 games that it has been. When you think about the 3 of them, meaning Sion James, Mason Gillis, and Malik Brown. The three of them are showing that somebody, I'm going to give Jay Lucas or someone else a lot of credit for understanding the portal, for understanding the kind of players to grab through the portal. These were not when, Jack, when you and I were going through the preseason and we're always getting excited about who they signed through the draft, and then through the portal they picked up another player.
Wait. You mean by the draft? Do you mean recruiting?
Yes, of course.
All right. I'm just making sure. Just making sure.
So they pick up, and we get excited each year about who they get. It's another McDonald's All-American recruit. It's great. It's hard to know. You always said that Malik Brown was a standout at Syracuse as a defensive player.
He led the conference in steals last year.
Right. And so so you gave him props for that. And then when you went to Mason Gillis, it's hard on a Zach Edey team to really say, yeah, there's this other guy who's really, really good. And so and Siad for his efforts at
Tulane.
I don't know that any other team aggressively would have sought out these three guys to say, this is going to increase our effectiveness by adding guys with experience, defense, physicality, which has sometimes been a mark of where we've said Duke is just not as physical, not as aggressive. Why can't we have somebody like that? And so the ability to have Sion James, who is, as I always said, I think it's the emergency room if I ever ran into a pick set by that guy. But Mason Gillis is now showing that he's equally tough, and we already know how much we miss Malik Brown. So those three core guys, and how they can always supply maybe it's not all three of them in the same game, but all three of them, if things aren't going the way we want in the beginning of the game, the three of them can enter the game. Well, now Sion is the starting guard, so that's not going to work the way it did when Foster was starting. But the three of them are just incredible in terms of adding a whole new dimension to a Duke basketball team that hasn't been there. One that truly emphasizes grit, toughness, and, no, you're not coming in here. You're not taking it over. And I think they form the core of a defensive team that is good without them in terms of the footwork of Mal. Tonight, I might have even used the word soft, to describe some of his play. The footwork of almost all of them. As you said, Proctor on defense tonight. Just great. But the three guys, I just would love to know their pathway from the Duke coaches finding them in the portal and bringing them in. It was just great.
Well, maybe I can help refresh your memory, because that is something we have talked about before. So, with that being said, Duke had an emphasis on trying to bring in physicality and experience. As last year's team, that was one of the marks against them, right? Was, as you said, at times they could be a little bit soft, and so they had a clear emphasis. Now, let's start with Gillis. We'll go through each one. Gillis, the Duke coaching staff, from the way Coach Shire tells the story, is that when they went, they held up. They said, "Who are we going to go after in the transfer portal?" And they were the coach. I don't know who said it. He didn't say specifically. But the idea was, let's go after somebody like a Mason Gillis. That was who they wanted, somebody like that. And I get what you're saying, what you said in terms of it's hard to stand out on a team with Zach Edey. But Mason Gillis was the Big Ten Sixth Man of the Year. It's not like he was
Okay.
unknown. And he had been very consistent for Purdue. Obviously, played there 4 years. And so when he actually became available, Coach Shire said he called Coach Painter right away. And was like, what do we need to do to get him? And then for those of you who may not know, Mason Gillis grew up a Duke fan. So I'm sure in some ways this is kind of like fulfilling a childhood dream. He gets to use his extra year of eligibility. It's a win-win for everybody. Malik Brown. I don't know exactly, again, which coach it was. It's not quite as clear on Brown as it was with Gillis in terms of they said they want somebody like Gillis. Oh, Gillis is available? Let's go get him. With Brown, I think he led ACC in steals per game at Syracuse, so they knew about him. And then not only that, but Coach Shire said he had his career high in points against Duke at Cameron last year. So he was very much, on the radar. The thing for me with Malik Brown was, especially when Mark Mitchell left the program, I thought Malik Brown would be coming to play power forward, not center. So I was surprised that he's really exclusively played at center, but he's been awesome for Duke as the center. And then Sion James, all of the credit with Sion James has been given to Jay Lucas, who they say I never heard of Sion James. I don't watch Tulane basketball, but they say that Coach Lucas was like, we gotta get this guy. And where would Duke be without Sion James? Without any of those three guys, as you said, they have been difference makers in ways that don't always. Sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't show up on the box score. And they've been the difference between this Duke team being great, to elite, to just being a good Duke team like it was last year. And that's why come Monday, this Duke team will be ranked number 2 in the country after Iowa State's loss today to West Virginia. And so with that, I think it's appropriate. JD, unless you've got something you want to wrap up with, we should wrap up the show.
No, I think I actually remember some of what you said, and I think that was really good to fill me in on most of it. It's Malik Brown. If you're listening, get better.
We miss you, buddy. And with that, shout out all of our commenters, Pay the Piper, Archangel Music, and Lawrence Freeman. We will see all of you guys for the Duke versus Wake Forest preview. That game's not till the following Saturday, so look for that either Tuesday or Wednesday. And that should be a good game against I guess it's not a Tobacco Road opponent, but a North Carolina opponent that did beat Duke last year in what was a crazy finish, as we all remember, with the court storming incident and Mr. Filipowski. So if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, like this video. It helps us grow. Share it with a friend, and we'll see you guys next time.
Wait, Jack.
Go ahead.
We're now available on?
We are now available as a podcast as well on Apple and Spotify. So I got to be sure to post this there after the game. Or after we're done recording.
And what's the name of the podcast if someone's trying to look for it?
Same name, Talking Ball. I think on Apple it might be Talking Ball, a Duke basketball podcast. I think it's the same name on Spotify. So if you're on the go and you can't watch on YouTube, that's another option for you. So we're trying to make it as convenient for you guys as possible. So I guess with that, we'll see you guys next time.
Wait, and if you've got a friend, and if you want to share this, and you want to like us, especially to our three top listeners, tell another friend to join in on the conversation. We love your comments, and it's just great to have you there. We really appreciate that you take the time to listen to us. So thank you.
It makes it more fun for us. So keep commenting. And like I said, I guess for the third time now, we'll see you guys for the Wake Forest preview. Peace out.